In this video, we're going to cover how to set up a challenge in RunSignup. This is going to assume that you've already created your race on RunSignup. For a virtual race, we do recommend going through our Go Virtual guide at runsignup.com/govirtual. Here, it'll show you basic setups of how to get started. There's a plan and setup guide. There's also promotional features and fulfillment options, as well as how to raise money and donations, and the basic guide for setting up virtual results. So today we're going to go over a challenge, and the challenge is different from a race because this will allow participants to log multiple activities to complete whatever challenge obstacle you have. So this example will be Run Through the Leaves Fall Challenge, where the participants will try to accumulate 200 miles over the course of the fall. So to get started, we've already created our race. Under the Race Day Tools tab, we're going to select Virtual/Challenge Results, and then configure virtual results. You can also get there from the menu search and just type in the word challenge, and it'll pull up the options for you to configure virtual results. So if you created the race in the race wizard, it allows you to set up whether it's a challenge or a race. So these will be the default settings here that you come to. If you don't have a button here, it'll say enable results, and you can get started that way. So we'll click the button to virtual race settings to review the options. Some important things to know about setting up an enhanced virtual race is bibs are not required, they're optional, but we definitely recommend setting up bibs, and you can set up the automatic bib assignment functionality. This allows you to tap into our digital bib option where you can share, participants can share their virtual bib online, and that's a great feature to use. So we recommend every race, whether you're a challenge or a race, to set up bib assignment and configure the digital bib. So when you first come to this page, it's going to ask you when can participants submit their results, and this is the submission period. So because this is a fall challenge, we want people to submit their activities during the fall, and that starts on September 22nd and then ends on 12/21. What can participants submit is the next section. This is a challenge, so this checkbox should be toggled to yes. The challenge event allows people to record multiple efforts across the challenge duration. The next option is our activity fields. By default, the time and the distance will be there, and this will allow participants to submit whatever they want in their activity. We also have elevation gain if you're trying to do a challenge to climb the most flights of stairs or climb a mountain top or something like that. In the distance completed tallies, there's a few options here. By default, it'll be a distance in miles, but we do allow kilometers, meters, and you can even set up a custom tally. Custom tally is great for a challenge that is more non-traditional, such as a book reading challenge. How many books can you read? How many push-ups can you do? Good deeds, lots of different options that we've seen for people doing custom tally totals. You can even set up number of laps that people can complete, and you can say how many meters equals 1 lap. For this challenge, we'll assume that this is in miles because we're going to do a 200-mile challenge. And you can set the accept activity dates, starting and end dates, based off of the guidelines that you have. So because this is a fall challenge, we only want to include activities that were actually done in the fall. So we'll go ahead and submit the same dates as above. Now these don't have to be the same dates. We can actually fix that one here to go to the 21st. But this allows me to only record activities with a date of 9/21/2020 through the rest of the fall. If these weren't entered, I could technically enter in a date of my activity that I logged, in previous months. The minimum and maximum allowed times, this is per each activity submission, how much is the minimum time allowed and maximum time allowed. So you see our default is 1 minute up to 24 hours. I recommend kind of tightening that window a little bit. We want to allow people to record a minimum of 5 minutes of activity, and to help reduce error submissions, maybe we only want to allow people to submit up to 6 hours worth of a time. And this way, if somebody did a 20-minute run, they didn't accidentally log 20 hours instead of 20 minutes. The next section is how should results be displayed. So this is your result set that you're creating your leaderboard for. Because this is a single event, the results will be tabulated through that single event. There are other options depending on if you have multiple events to submit alternate event submission only. That's more of an advanced setup, and that is covered in our challenge platform website. So just like we have our Go Virtual option, the challenge platform website is runsignup.com/challenge platform. And here we have a setup guide that has written instructions of everything we're covering today, as well as a front end look of how things look when participants are submitting results and common race director questions that they get. And in our advanced setup guide, it'll teach you how to do multiple configurations with the alternate result sets. So for the purposes of this video, we're going to just go through a basic challenge setup. If this race has teams, we can enable team results in addition to individual results. And then how we should sort the results. We have a new option for optional custom pre-sort. This requires milestones and bibs, so we'll cover that at the end of the video after we've gone through the basic setup. For challenges, most of the time you're going to sort by the distance because that's the point of the challenge. So it's a 200-mile challenge, so we're going to sort who's done the most mileage, and then beyond that it'll tie break based off of the time that they entered. Again, we'll get into the optional tiebreaker towards the end of the video. These additional options are good because it allows participants to upload their activities just by plugging in their email or the last 4 digits of their phone number. That way they're not required to log in to their profile. They can quickly submit results, so we definitely recommend that. There is an option to allow participants to indicate that they completed an activity but not actually record a time. So that's a consideration depending on how you want the results leaderboard to look. And then there's another option here that requires race director approval for each post. Depending on how much you want to look into each activity. For a challenge, we don't recommend turning that setting on, but for an individual race, maybe like a 5K, maybe you want to proof the results before you post them, so that's what that feature is for. So this is the basic of the event settings, so we'll save that page. And if you didn't have all these buttons before because we just started, now you'll see these event options here. We'll see that our virtual event type is a challenge. You'll see the tally type is in miles, and our activity submission dates are in the future, and that's why this is a yellow button here, is because they're scheduled to start in the future. We're not requiring approval for each individual option, and we haven't set up a goal yet. Texts are not applicable for challenges, just for individual races. So let's move on to the activity types. An activity type allows participants to submit different types of efforts. By default, we have runs, rides, swim, walk, ski, paddle row, or even a custom option. I recommend at least one activity type for your challenge. You can set up as a run for an example. You can also select different activities that they can log runs or walks totaling up, and you can even combine things by doing a custom activity and making this a run/walk if you wanted to. So this is kind of based on how you want the leaderboard to work. If you wanted separate challenges, you would need to set up separate events for a 200-mile running challenge versus a 200-mile biking challenge. That way people that want to do a bike are competing against people doing a bike, as opposed to just everybody competing in the same challenge with different activity types. So you can set up the tally type that they're doing. It's going to default to miles because that's what this challenge is doing. We can even put a limit if we want to stop people from logging activities. Once they've reached 200 miles, we can put a max tally here. So that's why it's recommended to add an activity type if you are considering ending the challenge at 200 miles. But maybe you want to keep it open-ended to allow people, if they hit that 200-mile challenge, they can keep going and they can keep participating all fall long to see how many miles they can actually accumulate. The time entry is also an important consideration with how you want the results to work. So if you're trying to sort people off the total distance and then you want to fall back on who did it in the fastest time, then you would want to require a time entry for each activity. If you wanted to allow just people to complete the distance without having to record the time, then maybe you make this optional. The splits and fields option, these can show the activity types in your results leaderboard. If you only have one activity type, it's not really recommended to also include the splits, since we know that the total is going to show up regardless of how many different activity types. But if you set up a run category, a walk category, and a bike category, and maybe you wanted to separate them out, if you think of a triathlon as an example, you can show the run split, the bike split, and the swim split all in the same leaderboard. They'll require at least one activity in most of one activity. That's also kind of like along the veins of a triathlon or maybe a CrossFit challenge, where in order to be able to submit results, you have to record at least your swim, your bike, and your run. So for this challenge, we're going to keep it very basic and just set up a run-walk type of activity. We're going to keep it open-ended, and we're going to allow people, if they want to record their time, they can. If not, they don't have to. So we'll go ahead and save the activity type. Next up is our notifications. Again, this is completely optional, but the notification allows people to opt in to automated messaging that you can control. Because this is a challenge, the text messaging is defaulted to off, so we're not going to cover that in this video. The next setting is the virtual results detail page. So when we send these automated notifications, there's going to be links to instruct participants how to record their results, and you can use the default RunSignup page to convey that information. You can also include a URL that you wanted to put in there, maybe to your website, and if you've recorded a video to help promote your race, your brand, or to guide people through things, you can include a video link in that page as well. If you wanted to do a more custom approach, we do allow you to kind of control where this points. So instead of pointing to your RunSignup race website, you can have this point to a specific URL of your choosing. So we'll just use the default for this particular example. The next is the messaging. So this is just a template that shows you what the replacement tag is, what the type of description is, and then the actual source code of what that explanation is. So if these are turned on, we would choose a date. A welcome message would be welcoming somebody to your challenge. So we'll put that on the first day of the challenge. So we'll go ahead and type in the first day of fall. The default would show up at 8 a.m. and this is 8 a.m. local to the participant's time zone. It's not the time zone that you set up in the Race Wizard. So if you're on the East Coast and a participant on the West Coast signs up for your virtual run, they're not going to get an email at 5 a.m. West Coast time. They'll get it at 8 a.m. West Coast time. The default messaging is very straightforward. It lets them know that it's race day, but because this is not a race, you can change this custom option to let the challenge begin and include the race day text. So this is the replacement tag that you have to include in these messages. So as long as this is somewhere in the message, that is going to portray this information here that lets them know it's a link to how to submit results and things of that nature. You can use the toolbar to customize this message. You can insert an image by using this image icon. You can even custom source code if you wanted to jazz up the message via HTML. You can do that as well. So if we have a welcome message, we also want to turn on the results submission instructions. So once we've welcomed them to our challenge, maybe we want to let them know that it's time to post results. Again, you just choose the time and date that you want this to go out, and as long as it includes this post result message, again, if we scroll back up to the messaging, it lets us know a generic placeholder text of what that's going to show and where to link that result. So those are the options that if you choose the email messaging, you need to set up both the welcome message and the result submission. And then optional to that is additional reminders. So throughout the months of the fall, if you wanted to remind them to continue to log results, you can put in a date. So maybe we'll remind them the week of Halloween. So we'll go to the 26th. And this can be a custom message to people who haven't yet started submitting results. So maybe you want to put this in a little sooner, maybe a week after the challenge has started. And then there's an optional message for people who've already submitted results to encourage them to keep logging and meet their goals. So you have up to 3 reminders. Again, these are all optional as far as reminders, and the notification section is also completely optional. We've seen races use the actual dedicated email marketing feature to just send out a blanketed templated email or use the notifications through the challenge software. So we're going to cancel on this so we don't save the page. And the next option is the goals. So the goals would be to set up that 200-mile challenge, this actually sets that goal leaderboard here. So we'll turn on the toggle that this is a goal, and we want everybody to do 200 miles, so we're going to set up the same goal for all participants. If you had a more open-ended challenge just to get people moving in activity, maybe you can let them define their own goal, but you can default them to start at the 200 miles. So we're going to have our 200-mile goal, and we want to show that progress bar. So this basically lets them know what percentage they are to filling that goal leaderboard. That's going to look really nice on the individual results page and kind of help see their progress throughout. Another cool thing to do to show the progress is to upload a map. So we have a 200-mile map that we want to upload that's going to show the progress not only just in total of what it is on 200 miles, but where along the course are we going. So if we want to display a map with a route, we just toggle this on and it gives us an option to upload a KML file. It does have to be KML. We currently don't support GPX, but you can upload a KML of your route. So we're going to go and click and choose our file. We're going to open up the map that we created, and you'll see that it's preloaded here. When we save this page, it's going to let us know that our settings have been saved. We'll come back into the goal area, and you'll see we now have this nice 200-mile goal map. And so as we complete our challenge, we'll slowly move from the Philadelphia area over down into Richmond, and we'll have a little pin that moves along the right, as well as the progress bar. So in addition to maps and goals, we also have milestones. Milestones can be added at the overall level or an activity type level. So if we did have multiple activity types, we can say, hey, you've logged your 3rd run, or you've logged your 5th walk, or what have you. So you can customize the goals and milestones this way. We're going to add a milestone at the overall level. And so that is in the same section of the overall goal. At the very bottom of that is a milestone. So we want to add a milestone type. We want to probably do a fixed distance completed just to kind of welcome them to the challenge. So we're going to name that milestone welcome. And the distance will be 1 mile, just basically to cover pretty much anybody that's done anything. We can even put it at 0.1 miles if we wanted to make sure that everybody that logs an activity gets a welcome badge. There's different badge types. The automatic badge will just show the actual total here. We have different running logos, different colors, biking, swimming, or what we really recommend to give people the full experience is a custom badge. So we'll add a custom badge option here. And we don't want to limit this by activity date, but if you wanted to have a special spurt of a particular week during your challenge, you can say it can only be achieved during the given time frame based off of what people are logging. So there's lots of neat things that you can do throughout your challenge to keep people motivated. There's also an option if you wanted to include a white background to overlay the image, you can check that as well. So if you have an animated GIF, we support those, and they have to be 300 pixels by 300 pixels. So we also recommend any images that you upload are 300 by 300 as well. So again, we've uploaded this information here, and we'll click Save. That saves our page. We'll go back into the goals just to preview it, and boom, there we have our 4-leaf clover as a welcome to our Run Through the Leaves Fall Challenge. So we can add a different milestone here. You can add as many as you want. You can do fixed distance, a repeating distance, for every 10 miles, a percentage of your goal. This is good when people have open-ended defined goals that the participant can choose their own goal. That way you can give a percentage-based goal instead of a fixed mileage. Also total number of activities, total number of time that they've logged. So lots of cool things to kind of add gamification to your challenge to keep people motivated. So we want to just go ahead and put the fixed distance in here, and then we just add you've done it, and we'll put this distance as 200 miles. So this will kind of be like our final badge that we do. Now you can go above and beyond this as well as people continue to log miles. You can give them overachiever badges, things of that nature. But we're going to set up a final milestone, and this is going to go through some more advanced settings for the sorting of your leaderboard. This helps you to kind of rank who was the first person to complete the 200-mile challenge, as opposed to who did the most mileage in the challenge. And we'll kind of articulate that here. So we're going to add another custom badge, just because custom badges are definitely a lot cooler. And we'll pick our next badge, and we'll go ahead and click Save. So that gives us our final badge option. Again, we have a welcome badge, which is a nice touch, and then the final distance badge, and then anything in between that you wanted to add. Once you've actually added these milestones, you can configure additional display settings. So this will be available to you to click into once you've completed or set up the milestone and save the page. So it's always good to kind of come back into here, and we can click into the milestone, and that's going to open up a new tab here to allow us to customize the welcome message. So this can be a message that appears and it pops up after I've logged that activity. It basically shows you that you've unlocked a badge, and then you can put lucky you found a 4-leaf clover. So that just kind of appears on the message screen when somebody achieves their badge, and you can also send an email to let them know that they've achieved that information as well. We've seen people include a link to a YouTube video that actually previews part of the course that they've done, include sponsor kind of coupons as they've reached different attachments. That way they can print out that coupon and get a discount to one of the sponsor partners for the race. All kinds of stuff that happens. This email will also automatically show that image at the top of the badge, so you don't need to include the badge image in this email, but you can include any other kind of custom information that you want here. So we'll click and just save that, and that'll take us back to our challenge information. So again, we have the different milestone types here. You can configure a welcome message when it pops up after they've submitted and completed that activity right on the results screen, and as well as an email that comes generated to them once they've achieved those milestones. So we definitely recommend doing overall activities. If you have multiple activity types, then maybe you want to do, for every 10 miles you did, or those repeating badges that you can do for the individual activity levels. And that's pretty much it for the goals. So we'll go ahead and make sure we save this page. And the next section is the details section. So I've already gone ahead and kind of pre-filled some of this out to kind of show you what it looks like. But basically, this is during the registration process, we're asking people if they would like to opt in to emails to get those automated notifications that we set up a little bit earlier. So this way, they can know what they're kind of opting in to let them know they're getting emails along the way. And there's also a results upload instruction. So on the screen where participants are going to be logging their activities throughout your challenge, you can give them some encouragement. Again, post a help guide to help cut down support questions that you might get as a race director. And you can even do an image on that page as well. So again, this is just the standard toolbar where you can add custom source code using the source code icon, or even import an image to just kind of jazz up the details. Again, this is all optional. The default messaging will let people know what they're opting into, and the results uploads is just pretty straightforward, which you can add more information. So that's a quick setup as far as the basic challenge. Let's kind of go over the next advanced option, and that involves why we had to set up milestones. So we can return back to our virtual results settings and the way that we're sorting results. So this is the optional custom pre-sort. We always want to, maybe we want to keep who the first person was that achieved, that finished the 200-mile Run Through the Leaves Fall Challenge. So we can do a pre-sort that is going to sort people by the earliest milestone completion date. So we're going to pre-sort our results based off of who unlocked the milestone the quickest, and that's why it requires you to set up a milestone. So we're going to choose the one that we've finished the race on, the You've Done It challenge, and now we're pre-sorting anybody that finishes the challenge first. So if I was to register and complete the 200 miles all within 1 month of the challenge, if I'm the first person to do it, I'm always going to be at the top of the leaderboard because I was the first person to achieve this milestone. If multiple people achieved on the same completion date at the same time, then we would rank them by the greatest distance. And then you can do an optional tiebreaker such as fastest pace or something like that. So these are the more advanced kind of custom sort. Obviously you can do a pre-sort with who is on pace to complete the challenge the fastest. Again, when you're doing fastest pace, you would need to require that everybody logs an activity, or else if I recorded 10 miles one day without a time and then 5 miles the next day in 40 minutes, now I have 15 miles that have been recorded in 45 minutes and my pace is going to be off. So anytime you're dealing with paces, you definitely want to make sure that you're requiring time entry for each time. And that'll take us through the basic setups. Again, all this information will be found on our Challenge Platform website at runsignup.com/challenge platform. We have written guides on each of the steps that we went through, as well as to watch this video at any time, a front-end look, as well as advanced setup instructions here as well. And we have a list of live challenge examples for you to get some inspiration or view some details of other challenges. Thanks for joining us.